Yesterday was a very, very, very difficult day, and let me explain why. I was in a vehicle for almost 9 hours and could not get here to you on YouTube to have the conversation that we need to have. I've literally been vibrating, like my whole body feels like it's vibrating for the last 12 to 15 hours because of the information that is coming out about Tim Walz that none of us are going to be surprised about. Not a single person is going to go, no, I never would have expected. We're all going to know that this is true. Before we jump into anything, I want to remind every single person here, number one, these conversations must be had. Not having these conversations is why things like this happen and why things could get worse if Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are voted into office, okay? Number two, I want you to remember that this is a safe space. If you, depending on the comments you put through, YouTube may hold some stuff, but we're going to have an open conversation here about what exactly is going on as we go along, because there's going to be more than just today's conversation. Some of this may have to go over to Patreon, Rumble, X, something else, because YouTube does like to censor things. We're going to push this as far as we possibly humanly can before YouTube tries to shut me up and shut me down, because this is a conversation we have to have. But Kamala Harris, and, oh, it has a crackle. Maybe it's because I'm yelling at it. That might have something to do with it. Let me, is it better? The sound is bad. Look. Have been pushing their campaign in the beginning. I don't know if you guys remember this, because first off they talked about Joy, and then Joy went away, and now it's a whole new thing. But in the very beginning, when they were really big on abortion, really big on trans rights, really big on LGBTQIA plus everything, they were also very big on believing the victims. And I need people to remember this at this point in time. Everything was about believe the victim no matter what. The victim should always be believed. Anybody that comes forward should be believed, and everything else. I know you remember this in the very beginning of this Kamala Harris campaign. It was about believe the victim. Now, there have been numerous victims in the Kamala Harris campaign that have stepped forward, and Kamala Harris campaign is extremely silent about. You know, Doug Emhoff's pregnant nanny who had to get an abortion because he threatened her, right? So that's one victim that they decided to just try to shut up about and not mention. Then we have Doug Emhoff slapping an ex-girlfriend. They're not talking about that. Do we not believe that victim? And now we have Tim Walz with victims speaking out that say when he was a teacher in Nebraska that he was all, you think my necklace? Oh, let's go that way. Yo, look, you guys understand what's happening. Okay, so here we go. There's people coming out saying that Tim Walz sexually assaulted them while he was a teacher in Nebraska. And this has come out over the last few hours, started yesterday. But if you remember, we talked about this possibility probably 2 months ago when we started talking about Tim Walz after he was picked, and I was like, that means Josh Shapiro said no, because there's no way they would have picked Tim Walz. There's nothing sane about that man. He's just creepy beyond all belief. I said, you know, Josh Shapiro turned him down. He knew it was a bad idea. So they picked Tim Walz at the last second. They did not vet Tim Walz. They did not look into his history. They did not look through anything to make sure that he's not a sick individual, right? So it turns out that while he was a teacher in Nebraska, we talked about it again a couple months ago. I'm just giving you a little backstory here, that he started some anti-gay bullying club is what he called it. Anti-bullying gay club, something along those lines. And it was supposed to be so that gay students and straight students could figure out how to coexist together, because I'm sure that was such a big deal, you know, 30 years ago. I don't really think it was that big a deal 30 years ago. I don't know that many people who were out of the closet or who were willing to come out 30 years ago also. But either way, he started this club. And a lot of people came through and said that during this club, he wouldn't let straight people in. It was supposed to be a straight, queer, joint club so they could figure out how to work through issues and work together and whatever else. And then all these people were coming out saying that no, he wouldn't let any of the straight kids in. So it was basically just a club for gay boys, which already a little iffy, little whatever. So then there were issues. People said that, you know, he had his DUI. We've talked about his DUI before. He had a DUI. There's going to be information on how and why he got that DUI today. Then we talked about the fact that he wasn't actually a head coach, even though he gives the illusion that he was Coach Walz. He was a head coach and he took these boys to victory and everything else, but that's not the case. He was an assistant coach. And then after he got his DUI, he was let go. But they kept talking about him being let go because of a DUI, even though they tried to smooth that over first. But the fact of the matter is, he was let go because of complaints that were brought to the school board, or the group at the school, about inappropriate conduct between him and students. That's why he was let go. So we're going to get into this right now. I'm just going to go through everything here. Now, this is something I can't prove. Obviously, this is a victim coming forward and saying what has happened with Tim Walz when this victim was a 14-year-old boy from the ages of 14 to 18. Okay. Tim Walz was this guy's teacher, and they had a relationship for 4 years during high school. And this victim is coming forward. The name has not been given out, but it will be, because the victim already knows that in order for this to go where it needs to go and have the impact it needs to have, and for people to understand the severity of what could happen with Tim Walz as a vice president, he's going to have to come out with his name and be fully upfront about who he is and what has happened, right? A lot of people will say, how come this person hasn't stepped forward till now, when he was a governor, before he was a governor? And this person actually started coming out and talking about this numerous times, but everything has always been kind of shut down or swept under the rug, things like this. So let me just go ahead and we're going to jump into this here. And I have all of these in a folder. I did well this time. I separated things out because normally it's all over the place. But okay, let's go down to the very bottom here. So Tim Walz, this is the school board for Alliance High School in 1995, which is where Tim Walz was. Contrary to what Tim Walz says, the school board voted 6-0 to fire Tim Walz. Okay, we talked about this months ago, that he was let go from the school. He didn't quit. They told him to leave. Of course, they call it accepting his resignation. They're going to say that in paperwork that they accepted his resignation, but it was because he was told to resign. We know how that works. Joe Biden didn't quit. Joe Biden was told to get the hell out, to get off the Democrat ticket. He didn't resign. He was told to leave, but it has to look like he decided to step out. Same thing here with Tim Walz. He did not leave teaching of his own volition. He was told to leave. And the reason I know he didn't leave of his own volition, because he and his wife, Gwen Walz, and another male teacher all just happened to resign on the exact same day. No, all three were pushed out of this school on the same day for the same reason, and that's their inappropriateness with children that they were teaching. So Tim Walz claimed that he left on his own and was talked into staying, which also is not true. This is the board, just so you know. And then we have the minutes from the school board meeting. I'll show you in just a minute. But this is the school board that told Tim Walz that he was done, that he had to leave, and he was not allowed to be a teacher anymore. Okay, so you have that one there. Let me get back to this, and then we're going to get into why this is a huge deal, why he was told he had to leave, why the school got rid of him. I'm trying to make sure I go in order here, in some sort of order. So this is, let's go up to the very, very beginning here. Hold on one second. Okay, so Tim Walz was a teacher. We know this. There is a gentleman on X called Black Insurrectionist who was reached out to by a victim of Tim Walz. He reached out to him because Black Insurrectionist has done a lot to help the catching people who have trafficked children, has stopped the trafficking of children, and a lot of other things. Okay, so let me try to make sure I got all this in order, because again, the timeline is still, it's just now coming out. There's a little bit more every few hours, and it's very hard to keep in contact or intact exactly which direction this goes. So this is the first email that was sent to Black Insurrectionist, and it says, hey Doc, now that Tim Walz has been picked as the VP, I think it is important we speak. Your work with child trafficked children is the reason I am reaching out to you. I have seen how you have told the stories of others. I am willing to tell you my story with Tim Walz. I became close with him and his wife, Gwen. This man is one of the biggest liars you will ever meet. He manipulated me. He did unspeakable things to me. I can give you details that nobody else can. I know you will keep my privacy. Will you hear me out? So that's one of the things. Okay. So this person reached out to Black Insurrectionists, and there's going to be people who say, why didn't he reach out to the government? Why didn't he reach out to anybody else? And do you trust them? Like, look at everything that's happened lately. Robin Stapp, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Look at everything that's happened lately. You have the Secret Service trying to cover up the fact that they willingly let an assassination attempt against Donald Trump happen. You've got the FBI lying about stuff. You have the sitting president and the sitting vice president lying about crap all the time. You have all this stuff coming out with Diddy at the exact same time, which is absolutely crazy to me. But for this man, I wouldn't want to. But he was trying to be one of the top parts of government, the vice president of the United States. Betsy, love you too, ma'am. Thank you so much. So I can understand, I can understand why he hasn't reached out to government officials before this, okay? But the fact of the matter is there is a person coming out saying that Tim Walz sexually assaulted him, and he has very detailed timelines of this happening. And like Kamala has said since the beginning of her campaign, believe the victims. So I believe this victim.
You have a message.
Yes. National attention that it's going to get if you were not serious about it. I believe victims all the time until it can be proven that it's wrong. So right now, I believe this man that's coming forward until or if they can prove that something's wrong here. I believe the victim. Okay, so this is the very first DM that this person sent to Black Insurrectionists said, if Tim Walz is the VP pick of Kamala Harris, I have information on him that is of a personal nature, as he was a teacher of mine at Alliance High School in Nebraska. And if you want to know more, please reach out to me because I trust you kind of thing. And Black Insurrectionist wrote back and he goes, I highly doubt Tim Walz is going to be the pick. I don't think there's any way possible she does not pick Shapiro anyway, which is what I said in the beginning. They picked Josh Shapiro. Josh Shapiro realized it was, tying himself to a dead horse and getting dragged around. So he didn't take the VP nomination. And Tim Walz was all that was left. Again, they didn't have time to vet him. It is what it is. So this is what happened. Black Insurrectionists had a phone call conversation with this man. And this was on August 9th. And this is a email that was sent to him. And I want to just tell you right now, there's some graphic nature in this. So just, put on your big girl panties and your big boy ears and all that stuff and pay attention. What's crazy to me is what I'm about to read to you. Tim Walz has come out numerous times and said that he doesn't believe there should be any banned books because he thinks that everybody should be able to read anything they want. I am a grown-ass woman reading this thing from this grown-ass man to another grown man, and even I'm like, oh, like, it's spicy. Like, it sounds spicy. That's the only way I know how to phrase this. And this is what they're considering. Tim Walz considers G-rated and should be in schools. The truth, no matter what. Look, I love your name, number one. The truth, no matter what. And that's exactly how I feel about things right now. So we're going to have this conversation no matter what, no matter how people feel, if they get triggered, if they get whatever, we still need to have this conversation. So I want to read you this, but I've given you a heads up that it does get a little, they consider it G-rated. I don't. Okay. It says, thanks for the call. I will lay out in detail what has happened to me. I was 14 years old when I met Tim Walz. Like many normal kids, I was very confused about many things. My emotions were that of a typical teenager. Tim and Gwen Walz befriended me. Now, Tim and Gwen Walz, just side note, both worked at the same high school. They were both teachers in the same high school, okay? He says, I was a loner. They made me feel special. Tim Walz started telling me secrets about himself. He told me I could trust him with anything. I was very shy and having difficulty. Tim and Gwen extended an invitation for me to go to a concert with them in March of 1995. When we got to the concert, though, it was just Tim Walz and me. The concert was the Indigo Girls, who I knew nothing about. During the concert, he started to explain to me the meaning behind the lyrics. He started, the entire time he was explaining this, he was explaining to me that I was gay. The entire time he was explaining to me that I was gay, he was rubbing my back up and down in what I thought was a comforting gesture. Then the next thing I know, I remember feeling tired, overwhelmingly tired. The rest of the night, I am not comfortable telling you right now. I'm going to put in a letter. It is too difficult for me right now. I understand how, and then Black Insurrectionist says, I understand how difficult this must be for you. And then, he goes to clarify. He's like, I just want to be clear that you are 14 years old. You're at a concert alone with your teacher, an Indigo Girls concert, which if anybody knows Indigo Girls, that was like lesbian rock, like back in the day. Like they were straight Lilith Fair, Sarah McLachlan style, whatever, girl for girl kind of stuff, right? And then he's asking him the questions. He's like, were you served alcohol? If you're feeling overwhelmingly tired, were you drinking something? Was the concert in March of 1995? He's trying to, get all the details here. And what's crazy is this isn't the one that's all not G-rated. It's a little more extreme on the next one. What's crazy here is that this is where it gets weird and sounds wrong. You think as a parent that you should be able to trust the adults in your child's life, right? You should be able to trust their teachers, their coaches, their pastors, their doctors, their everything else. And unfortunately, we keep seeing time and time again that these grown individuals cannot be trusted. But the problem here is a lot of kids are going to go through situations with adults and be scared to tell their parents. One, because they don't want their parents to feel guilty, or they don't want their parents to feel like they did something wrong. Two, a lot of these times these kids are being groomed and they don't understand that what is happening is wrong, or they're scared to come forward because what if they get in trouble? You know how emotions work. But these kids need to know that it's not their fault. When these adults do things to them that trusted adults should never ever do, it is not the fault of the victim. It is not the fault of the child. And this guy finally coming out and having this conversation and telling people about Tim Walz and everything that happened, people are like, well, why did you wait? There are people out there, you will never know the things that they have gone through because of how it has affected them mentally. They've either stamped it down or they've held it in because telling people might make them look bad. It might hurt other people. So they keep it to themselves. And this guy, for, however many years, has kept this to himself. And now he's like, listen, this man could be the possible vice president of the United States. He has already gone through in his state of Minnesota and made it so there's tampons in boys' bathrooms. He's made it so that the word pedophile has been erased from any sort of sexual assault terminology. Pedophile is not the word that is used anymore. They've taken it away. They don't want it to be something. They don't want people labeled as pedophiles in Minnesota. Why would the governor of Minnesota take the word pedophile out of all context there unless he himself does not want to be labeled as a pedophile? To take that word out is crazy to me. To put in this new MAPS, minor attracted person, whatever, is absolute bullshit. And call it what it is. If Tim Walz was touching a 14-year-old boy, not only is he gay, he's also a pedophile. He's a gay pedophile. That's so many struggles this man is working with. Like, normally they say pick a struggle, pick one thing. That's a lot right there to deal with. And to put that onto a 14-year-old boy is absolutely crazy. But they go after young, impressionable kids who don't realize that this person that they're looking up to, that they consider, a good teacher or, a father figure or a brother or whatever else, they don't realize that what they're doing to them is wrong. It's not normal and it's not something that should be happening. And so they go along with it thinking, okay, I don't really know if this is okay or not. But I see Tim Walz, and somebody said, look at how he treats his son. When he was on stage at the DNC and Gus Walz and his daughter and Gwen Walz were on stage with him and he yanked his son's arm, my very first thought was that is an angry man, and I don't want to know what he does to his children in the dark off that stage where people can't see, because he was willing to grab him and yank him that aggressively in front of all of those people. And then you have people going, oh no, he just didn't want him to run into something. That's not how you stop your child from running into something. The look on that man's face and the anger with which he pulled him is not normal. And this guy who's coming out about Tim Walz is saying that he is a very angry man, and that he would blow up on small things that were small issues, but he would blow them out of proportion, right? Okay, so look, here's the story. I'm gonna read this to you. Just heads up, okay? He says, during the concert, I became extremely tired. I don't know if it was the alcohol, which, number one, why is a grown-ass man giving a 14-year-old boy alcohol? Okay. I don't know if it was the alcohol. I don't know if something was put in the alcohol, but I remember dancing with Tim Walz. We were slow dancing. I remember his hands being inside of my pants a little. He was telling me that it was natural. He was telling me that it was okay. Now, my first thought was, why is nobody in this concert noticing a grown man slow dancing with a young boy? But then you also have to think about it, that a lot of concerts, people are drunk. They are on some sort of drugs. If it's an outdoor venue and it's dark, nobody can see these things that are going on. So again, I believe the victim. He says, after the concert, Gwen was not to be found. Tim said he would take me home, but we would stop off and get something to eat. Being 14 years old, I thought this meant McDonald's. To be honest, I thought I was having a great time. I thought I was beginning to think that I was gay. When we stopped to get food, it was a tavern, and I didn't realize until I was older there was actually a gay bar. There were only a couple of women in the entire place, but they were really not women. So, butch lesbians is basically what that comes down to. He says, I don't remember how long we were there, and I don't remember the drive back home at all. This is where it gets, just FYI, for anybody who can't hear this kind of thing, this is where it gets a little graphic. The next thing I remembered, I was naked and I was in the home of Tim Walz. He was giving me oral sex. I remember it only took seconds, maybe a minute for me to ejaculate. I thought this meant I was gay. I thought this meant I really was gay. I did not understand it was just a physical reaction. I remember being upset. I thought Gwen would walk in. He told me not to worry about it. He told me Gwen would not disturb us. He kept reassuring me that everything was okay, that this was normal, and that he was helping me see that I really was gay. The next morning, I woke up on their couch. Gwen was there. They made breakfast, and they acted like nothing happened at all. Tim took me home, and I honestly thought I had feelings for him. I thought he was showing me life. I remember feeling so confused yet so free. I thought this was part of becoming a man. I remember a definitive bump-like scar on his chest. He told me all kinds of secrets. He told me he was almost deaf from his time in the military, and he told me he had served in the Persian Gulf War. When I finally got home, I did not tell my parents anything, but I thought I had feelings for Mr. Walz. He told me many secrets about himself. At least I thought they were secrets. He told me that he was bisexual. He explained what that meant. I would continually see Mr. Walz during 1995. I spent a lot of time with him whenever I could. I can't remember the exact date, but I moved to another country in the summer of 1995. My parents were becoming suspect. In summer of 1995, he came to see me. We were drinking. We had gone out that night. We got into an argument when I found out he planned on taking students to another Indigo Girls concert. On that night, he left very angry. That is the night that he got pulled over for drunk driving. He called me and told me what happened. He told me he was going to be fired from his football job. At this time, I was in a different school district. This is when I started to learn I was not gay. This is when I began to know I like girls. I did not talk very often during 1996, but my parents had called the school board and had made a complaint. I would never admit to my parents what happened, but they told the school board they had suspicions of a sexual relationship between myself and Mr. Walz. We probably had 10 to 12 sexual encounters, and that's where that stops. So, that to me is very detailed, right? Very detailed in the way that you recount a past story. It, to me, does not sound made up. This sounds like the victim of sexual grooming, of trusting somebody that should not have been trusted. It is absolutely crazy to me. Then you take into consideration the fact that, not on top of this, you have Tim Walz going to China 33 times, I believe it was, China 33 times. You know what they have in China? Very, very relaxed laws against grown-ups and minors. That's the way I'm going to put this. Grown-ups and minors. They have very, very relaxed laws about it. They also have plenty of places that will facilitate that for you if that's what you want. Why else would Tim Walz need to go to China 33 times? He liked it so much, he even got married in China, which is, interesting also. He got married in China, in case people didn't know that. But what's crazy is, Black Insurrectionist was telling, he started emailing the vice president and the president. The second that this man reached out to him, he went on to the White House website and emailed the White House, because it keeps a track, like they keep a record of it. It has to be kept. It will always be in the logs that somebody emailed something in. And he actually took screenshots of everything too. So Black Insurrectionist over on X, if you guys want to go check it out. He emailed them and he said, hey, listen, I want you to know that this man reached out to me. This is what he's saying about Tim Walz, your vice presidential pick. And this is something that needs to be looked into, because if this is true and you're going to put this man in a spot as a vice president, what does that say to the people of our country, basically, right? People need to know what they're voting for. Do you really think that people are going to want to vote for a pedophile, for somebody who uses the trust of children against them? So he emails the White House, and the White House, of course, doesn't respond. But approximately 7 to 10 days after my email to the Vice President of the United States, putting her on notice that Tim Walz brought a child to an Indigo Girls concert, the story was dropped. So do you guys remember when that came out? They actually said something about the concert. Hold on, let me see what this says here, guys. 1 second here. So we've got Newbie No More unveiling my journey. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. And then Oz the Cat said, sounds legit. We can't allow predators like Walz into office, though highly disturbing. The truth needs to get out about sickos like him. Unbelievable. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. I agree 1000%. I know that there's probably a lot of people that are discussing this right now all across different social media platforms, whether it's, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. The information needs to get out. I hope everybody is talking about it right now because this is a huge, huge deal. But after Black insurrectionists emailed the vice president and said, hey, listen, there's a guy saying that Tim Walz took him to an Indigo Girls concert when he was 14 years old and got him drunk and did all these different things. The news media, the news outlets, Tim Walz and his wife Gwen took a gay student to an Indigo Girls concert in the 90s. It's literally a article that came out, but they spun it as this is, a husband and wife couple that are teachers that really do the best for their kids and want to make sure that all the kids that are their students feel loved and appreciated and seen and understood. And they tried to paint this like it was him taking this kid to a concert because, that's what good teachers do. Bro, at no point in time, if one of my male teachers had been like, hey, you want to go to a concert with me? Ew. Female teacher. Ew. Ew, you're my teacher. Why would I want to go to an Indigo Girls concert with you? Why would I want to hang out with you outside of school and outside of any sort of school-related activity? Weird. Not saying it doesn't happen. There's plenty of teachers out there that are actually amazing and do try to help students, but not all of them. And it's hard to know which one is which until it's either too late or not, So the White House knew about it. They came out and tried to make it seem like Tim Walz and his wife were just doing a good thing, trying to put it in the heads of the voters, in the minds of the voters, that they've done nothing wrong, that they're just a loving couple, and that Tim Walz is, the new masculine, and that he's just amazing, and everybody should vote for Tim Walz. That's what they're trying to do. And now you have more information coming out, and I wonder if they're going to, as I call it, crickets for Kamala, if they're going to keep it quiet, or if they're going to discuss this, because again, they're not discussing any of the Doug Emhoff accusations that have come out against him. They're keeping it quiet like nothing has happened, and they're spending all their time attacking Donald Trump instead of talking about the things that actually matter. If they do not discuss this whatsoever, please understand, they know that he is guilty. If they do not come out and shut that shit down, then they know he's guilty. So Rand Man Comedy says, although I don't doubt Tim Walz did this disgusting act, I'd be very skeptical since this information is coming from Black insurrectionists. He's known to be a grifter and fake evidence. Be cautious. So I hear what you're saying. And that's why I said, I cannot prove any of this is real. But what I'm telling you is that I will believe the victim as well. I'm going to put it out there like that. I will always believe the victim. So Black insurrectionist, I looked through all of his stuff, and there has been numerous times where he has been 1,000% correct. He came out, I think, a month or two before Joe Biden dropped out and said that it was going to happen. He said he will be dropping out. He will be taking his name off the Democrat ticket for presidential nomination in 2024. He will be taken off. He will not be the nominee, because he goes, I have it on fact from somebody in the White House or all that other stuff. And sure as shit, guess what happened? Joe Biden, not on the Democratic national ticket. So there's been other things that he's come out about that have been correct. We could say the same thing about Laura Loomer. You could say the same thing about Matt Walsh. You could say the same thing about Benny Johnson. You can say the same thing about mainstream media. I mean, think about it. But if you want to tell everybody that they're wrong or they're lying, then you don't believe anything that happens, and then more stuff like this happens. And I don't know if that was the correct way to phrase that, but Oz the Cat, welcome to Part of the Family. Extremely happy to have you here. So Tim Walz and this man that's coming out, there's going to be more and more coming out about it over the next few days. But what's crazy to me is